as kings and queens. That's right. Hello, I'm Kennedy Monroe, and welcome to this week's episode of Tea Talk 101. This week, dive deep into my own issues with my father and how it is still affecting me mentally 20 years into my transition, and how possibly I need to go to counseling. And we also talk about how you need to find your inner self in order to transition, and you also have to find that love within yourself in order for other people to be allowed in to love you. And we have to fight for ourselves before we can fight for others in this journey of life. So that's this week's episode of Tea Talk 101. We all just want to be seen. We're all beautiful kings and queens. We all just want to be seen. We're all beautiful kings and queens. Hello everyone. I hope you're having a great start to your week. If you don't know, if you don't follow me on social media, I'm currently on my first week of vacation. Sunday was day one. I got a 2-week vacation from my day job, which really not a day job because I worked nights, but moving forward after my vacation, it will be a day job. Some people may know I work for Amazon. I'm very proud to work for Amazon. I've been there a little over 2 years ago, and when I decided to go work for them, I was scared because being a trans person and being feminine, I didn't think, I'd be able to work in a warehouse. So that was kind of what scared me. But my husband had worked temporarily part-time at Amazon Prime Now, and he really liked it, but they weren't giving him the hours, and a new building was opening up here in Houston, and I applied and eventually got in. And I really went because we needed health insurance as trans people, and the benefits were good, and I wanted my husband to be able to get top surgery. So doing a lot of research, Amazon is one of the few companies that allows that. I also know Starbucks is the same way. But I speak out for Amazon because I work at Amazon and I'm firsthand at Amazon, and I can give my experience of working at Amazon. So within a few months of being there, I knew I wanted to move up. So I started doing the process of becoming a learning ambassador, where I would train new associates. And at my time as learning ambassador, I think I trained over 300 or 400 associates. And then less than a year of being there, I moved up into what we call a process assistant, which is basically like a supervisor. You help process the guide or process stuff. And so I did that, and now I will be moving to a brand new building here in Houston, starting as what we call level 4. It's like a manager. I'll be working on the transportation team as a lead. So it's very exciting. I'm nervous about going to a new place, but I also have to remember that when I went to Amazon the first time, it was scary and nerve-wracking. This time I know what to expect. It's just a new role, a new building, and I just have to just be myself, which is what I did when I went to Amazon. I was at Amazon for a little under a year before I even came out as trans. I did not tell anybody. I didn't talk about it or anything like that. And then they started looking for people to join a group called Glamazon, which is our LGBTQ group at work. It's globally. There's different chapters, And I did that, and that's where I first really came out. And then I started being vocal because I felt like other people needed to see a trans person. And because in the process, a trans woman started working at the building, but I noticed that her birth name was on her name tag, and that's not what we called her. And so I said, "Why do you have that on your name tag? I don't want to be rude or anything." And she says they won't change it. So I worked with her to get her name changed on all her documentation at work. Uh, and she was happy. And what was great is that after all her documentation was changed at our building, she got to move back to the building she originally came from, and she got to be her wonderful self. So Amazon is a great place, and Glamazon is a real big part of that. So if you are trans, non-binary, or part of the LGBTQ community and you are looking for a job, good benefits, good money, go to Amazon. Uh, Search out it. It's a great place, and it will change you in a lot of ways. It's changed me, and I'm happy. I've met so many wonderful people, and it was sad leaving my building because I've touched so many people's lives and made them feel better. And that's what a great manager, supervisor is supposed to have. So I just can't wait to start this new job. So, about transitioning, this episode I really wanted to talk about transitioning and self love. And it all came about because I was on TikTok doing a live show, and a guy came in and basically said that he needed friends and that all his friends really abandoned him and called him names because he came out as bi. But he did say his family accepts him, but his friends don't. And all of us in the group really tried to tell him, you know, um, maybe you need to find a new group of friends. Maybe find group friends that are like you, or in the LGBTQ community that can understand you. And I also told him about maybe self love because I felt like he was depressed or down or something in the way he was talking. And he told us that he wasn't, that he accepted who he was and that he loved who he was. He just couldn't have friends. And but he had his family support, which we were all like, a lot of LGBTQ people do not have family support. They make friends. So he was kind of the opposite of that. And it made me think about my transition. So a lot of people always ask me, and I kind of touched on it on last episode. When I transitioned, I was a kid in the 80s. I was a teenager in the 90s. There wasn't representation of trans people on TV or in the media, so I had never even knew what a trans person was. I've asked my grandma recently in the last 5 or 6 years, what did they think about me when I was younger? Because I was very flamboyant, I was outgoing. And she told me that they always called me a sissy. That's the word that they used. They didn't know what trans was, they just knew I was a sissy. And it's made me really think, I have never wanted to go full on having gender confirming surgeries. I've really never really had any surgeries per se. I've never had face work. The only thing that's in me is free flowing silicone, which are on my breast and a little bit in my hips and a little bit in my cheeks and my face. Not a lot in my cheeks and my face, but I would say to a young person, don't do that. But back in the early 2000s when I did it, it was very hard to go to find a surgeon that would work on a trans person. Or if they did, they charged you an arm and a leg. And I just really couldn't afford it. Whereas silicone injections, you could pay a little bit here, a little bit there, and get pumped. And that's what I did. I went on a table in the south side of Chicago in someone's apartment, went into a room, laid on a table as they pumped silicone into my breasts while you're awake. Now, let me tell you, that is the most painful feeling in the world because they're stretching your skin with this stuff as you lay there. So, kids, do not do that. Please do not do that. Eventually, I will have to have a double mastectomy and then implants put in. I do have complications to my silicone, not as bad as some of my friends have, but it is relevant and there. But back to being a kid in the 80s and a teenager in the 90s and trying to figure out who you were. In 95, I came out as gay. I grew up in a small redneck town. You can still go to this town to this day, and it's still basically the same. A lot of stuff has shut down, but new businesses have went up closer to the freeway. It would be what you call a real Trump town. And so in 1995 for me to come out, I mean, I came out swinging doors. But I never knew what trans was. I related to drag queens. That's what I related to. So some of my favorite movies as a kid and a teenager was like Birdcage, Tu Wong Fu, Priscilla, Queen of the Desert, and watching RuPaul on TV. I remember when Supermodel of the World came out, and I was just like, I would walk around singing it. I remember also when I was a kid, I wanted to be Madonna and Cyndi Lauper. So that just tells you I kind of had this thing in my head, but I just didn't know how to relate to it. Whereas now, trans kids can see themselves in some kind of media representation. Maybe it's not kids, but they can see adults. And I told this story the other day about, my nieces on TikTok. A funny story that when Caitlyn Jenner was transitioning on TV, my nieces, my sisters never really told them about me. I'm just Aunt Kiki to them. But they were watching Caitlyn Jenner and they go, "That's like Aunt Kiki." That's what they would tell my sister. And she said, "Yeah." And so they started asking a lot of questions about Aunt Kiki and about genitalia and stuff like that. And my sister basically really answered them real and honest. She didn't sugarcoat anything. And so because I've never had bottom surgery and never wanted bottom surgery, she told him that, of course, Aunt Kiki has a penis. And that Uncle Teacup, which is my husband, he doesn't have bottom surgery. He has a vagina. And she had to really explain it to him in those terms, but they understood. So then, like a month later or something, my sister texts me and goes, "I got called into the office at school." And they were in a small redneck town, too. And one of my nieces was on the playground and told the kids that her Aunt Kiki has a penis. I thought that was hysterical and funny. And, of course, my nieces would say something like that. But it just shows you that kids love and accept you no matter who you are. It's when they get older and adults start to impose their beliefs on the kids that they become hateful and they learn to hate. And kids are not taught racism. I mean, kids are not born racist. They're taught racism. And kids don't see the color of the skin. They don't see gender. They just see love. And sometimes I think us as adults and humans, we need to think like children before they hit that age that they're taught things. I grew up with a father who was racist, homophobic, misogynist, and it affects me a lot to this day. Even though he accepts me in lots of ways we don't have a relationship like my brothers have with him. Uh, I'm starting to realize I have daddy issues because of it, possibly. Uh, and my husband keeps telling me I need to go to counseling because the other day he came over and in October he divorced my stepmom, which who raised me, uh, and is really my mother. Well, besides my birth mother. And I'm still close to her, and I see her, and she'll always be my mom. Um, but my dad, I think the only reason he called me Kennedy or uh, let me around or accepted me was because of my stepmom. She just made it adamant that I was coming to holiday events and that I was going to be this and you were going to accept me and stuff like that. So my dad would try, and here's how I look at things. I don't get mad if someone calls me my birth name. I don't call it a dead name. I'm proud of who I was and where I'm going. So for me, in my journey, the name doesn't bother me. It bothers my husband when someone calls me it, but for me, it doesn't bother me as long as they're trying. Like my grandpa, who mistakenly calls me it or mistakenly uses the wrong pronouns, but he corrects himself or tries to correct himself, and that's the part where I say he's trying, and so I don't get mad. But with my dad the other day, he came over with his new girlfriend, and he introduced me as my birth name, and I'm standing there in a dress, and I was like, hi, and I brushed him off and went and did my thing, and I really, like I said, I don't have a relationship with my dad like that, so I didn't really care about his girlfriend. I don't really care about a lot of things, and the fact that he called me that and stuff like that to his new girlfriend just really affected me. And at that moment it didn't affect me, and I told my husband about it and he got mad, but it didn't affect me until the next day when my dad texted me something about something else, and it really pissed me off, and I cussed him out and I blocked him on my phone. And I started telling my husband, because I started having a meltdown and I started crying, and my husband's like, why are you crying? And I just like can't understand it, and I feel like all the emotions that I've held for so long. So when I was like 20, I left Texas to transition away from my family. I walked away from them because I couldn't stand all their beliefs and all this bull crap that they like to spew. So I had to just get away, and it was the best thing I ever did. So it's kind of like I told my husband, I want to run away from the problems, and I just don't want to be here. And that was the hard thing that I had to do. And so now it's like, for so long I've ran away from this problem, and now I'm having to face it at 40 years old. That I have issues with my father, and it affects me as a person. And I never understood people that have daddy issues, but in a lot of ways, I can look at the reason I acted a lot of the ways I have in the past is because of my daddy issues. And now at 40, I'm having to look at that and maybe think about going to counseling and talking to someone in that sense. And I've avoided counseling for so long because I'm like, I can do it by myself, I can do it. And my husband keeps telling me, no, you can't. So as we transition, we have to remember that we have to self-love, and we have to deal with the things of our past and deal with the things of who we are to move forward. And even though I transitioned 20 years ago, I have to, in some ways, reevaluate a lot of things that are happening with who I am. And as I get older, I have to also give myself self love and self help. I can smile and say everything's wonderful, but in the reality is somewhere deep inside of me, I have issues that need to be addressed. So what I'm saying is your mental health and your inner self need to be taken care of just as much as our appearance and as much as our transition. And in a lot of ways, for 20 years, I've avoided that mental part of my transition um, when it comes to relationships with family members and relationships with other people. And that is the big key in us transitioning is we also have to cope with the mental aspect of how society treats us, how society accepts us. And I can tell you all day long that I don't give a fuck what anybody thinks about me. And that is true. I don't. But in some weird way, I care about what my family thinks of me. And that affects me the most. And maybe because my dad raised me, I feel like I've always wanted his love the way he loves my brothers. And I never got it because I was different. So those are the things that I'm grappling with now at 40. And who knows if I'll ever get to a place where my father and I have that loving relationship, because I honestly just don't see it, foresee it, because of the way he views a lot of things and his rhetoric. I just can't be around. But that's just how I think things will come. But my transition has been 20 years. Something I had to learn, and maybe this all stems from also my daddy issues. I was in an abusive relationship when I was younger. When I was first transitioning, I was in an abusive relationship with a guy who cheated on me, called me names. He never hit me, he just verbally abused me. And basically always told me that no one was going to love me. He was the only one. And that's why I stuck around and dealt with a lot of crap. And eventually one day I left. Thanks to my friend Fallon Fox, which is a famous MMA trans fighter. The first openly trans MMA fighter. I was around her and she helped me get out of this abusive relationship, and she was my friend, and I eventually moved in with her for a while, and so many wonderful things happened. And what's fucked up is I messed up that relationship with her, and now that we're back talking after so long, it's so nice and rewarding. But I've messed up a lot of relationships because of I'm starting to see that has a lot to do with my relationship with my father and how I treat others and friendships and people who love me and people that want to be around me. It bothers me so much that my relationships that I've purposely messed up really stem from my relationship with my father. And that's the part that, hurts, because why did I act that way? Why did I let some man control me? But Fallon taught me that you had to love yourself. And at the time, Fallon was just early in her transition, and I was already 5 years into mine. But I had to really find myself, and really had to love who I was. And once I did that, I could let go of that guy, and I did. And what's ironic is years later he came back to me and he found me, or he contacted me, and we went on a date and he tried to woo me, and we went back to my apartment and we had sex. And when it was all over with, he thought he was going to stay and I was going to take him back. And I basically said, "You got to go." And I kicked him out. And he tried to get back with me. And it was like, "Nah, I don't need you." And even more years later, he contacted me. Well, he had his wife contact me because he was married and had a kid. And he had to have her contact me and tell me something. And I just felt like, oh my God, he's still attached to me. He's still he probably listening to my stuff. He knows. I know he follows me. He knows how to find me. He's one of those freaks. But the funny thing is I win. And I told him he will always want to be with me. And he'll never get to. And I see it now. But through my journey, I've always found that self-love is what's really carried me through a lot of things. And my love for myself is amazing. I can feel like shit, but still love who I am every day. I'm proud to walk out of my house every day and be the woman that I am. I'm a proud trans woman. I don't deny it, but I also, in some situations, don't promote it until I know the situation's safe. But I also live in Texas and live in a crazy place. And it's just like when I started working at Amazon, I was very private about my situation before I said something to anybody or outed myself. And I feel like that's okay for us to do. We can out ourselves when we are ready. Just remember that being trans has its ups and downs, but you're beautiful no matter what. And I know I need to go to counseling and to work out my situations. And why I'm telling my story and why do I constantly tell my story is because I feel like more people need to hear my story, and maybe my story will help and resonate with others. That's why I've always been a person that speaks out and tells my story. I've done it since I was first transitioning in magazines and trans magazines and telling different stories and having my podcast and my YouTube channel. It's because I always wanted to be a role model for other trans people. I wanted them to see it's okay to have these issues and doubts because it just makes us a stronger and better human being. And self-love is the big key to anything. You don't have to be trans to hear this same message that I'm telling you. Everybody has to have self-love. We have to love who we are, because if we can't love who we are, then no one else can love us, because we don't allow that love to virtually come in. And I can tell you that in my 20 years of transitioning, I've had a lot of bad things happen to me. A lot. And I'll just say that I've still never been to the bottom of where I've seen other people be. And I'm proud of that. I've worked through it. I've worked myself up. I may be really low in a place in my life, and I've pushed myself out of that place to really find who I am. And that is something that is amazing and is unique. And I've learned that I have to fight for me, and then I can fight for others. And I fought 20 years for me, and I'll keep fighting for me. But now that I'm older, I'm going to be fighting for those younger people. I'm going to be fighting for that young trans person who doesn't have their dad's support, that doesn't understand where they're going. As I fight for myself and eventually go into counseling, I have to fight and deal with those relationships that have some way affected me through my own journey and my own life, and how I need to come to terms with that mentally and help rebuild this fight. It's okay to have doubt, and it's okay to not have that acceptance that we want from certain people. We just have to learn to fight for ourselves and accept who we are and accept the journey that we're on as trans people. Um, this past year, I wrote a song called Kings and Queens, and the real reason I wrote the song is because I wanted an anthem for trans people to have. It was my gift to trans people. It's called Kings and Queens, and it's about resisting and being powerful in the sense that we're all kings and queens. We're all beautiful people. It doesn't matter where we are in our transition. And I wanted that to be something that, even though you feel like you're at your lowest point, I've been there too. And I understand you. And I just want it to reflect everybody else that I've been where you are. I know where you're going. And that here, this is for you. We're all kings and queens. Don't try to not live every day like you're a motherfucking king and queen. And that's what it is. We are all beautiful kings and queens. So I want to say to you, as I close this podcast, please know that you can reach out to me at km@kennedymonroe.com. You can check out my website at kennedymonroe.com for all my social media links. And please feel free to contact me. Let me know how my podcast or my story or anything that I've done has impacted you. I would love to hear from you. I love hearing from people. And follow me on social media and tell me your story. I would love to hear your story. And just know that I'm here for you. And that even though I'm going through something, it doesn't, and I'm fighting for myself, I'm also fighting for you. And I will always fight for you and fight for myself in this journey. So don't hesitate to not be able to contact me. I'm very down to earth, and a lot of people assume that I'm not going to talk to them, but I do talk to them. I will tell you anything. I will give you advice that I can give and all that stuff. Whatever you need, just feel free to reach out to me. And anyway, as I always say, wherever you listen to this podcast, please like it. Please comment. Please leave a comment. Rate it. Let people know how amazing it is. Share it with other people, because we would love more people to hear this podcast. I know I would really love it. And thank you so much. And I hope you have a wonderful rest of your week. And just remember that you are beautiful, you are valid, and you are loved. Okay? Just remember that. I love you. And stay beautiful. Bye.